That's, we have 201 properties. So 42 divided by 201. Let's see what that is. That's a 20%. Arguably, you can round up to 21%. So that's a 21% vacancy rate. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I think the first reason is that we have acquired so many properties. I mean, in October, I think we closed on about 30 doors, which, that's a large influx. And at the time, I think we purchased a lot of like distressed properties that needed even like light rehab. But of those 42 vacancies, we've got 13 that are currently in progress, so under renovation. 10 of them are rent ready. So they're listed or about to be listed, and then 4 move outs that are scheduled, and they just need cleans and light turns. So the good news, that's the good news, is when you do everything right on the front end, when people do move out, it's generally just like a light cleaning is all it takes to get the properties back on the market. So I know I've done a few videos, like the short videos recently, and I've shared them here on Instagram as well. And I'm just showing like how extensive some of the renovations are. And it does make for really easy cleans. Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks, Amy Bowles. What is your opinion on auction.com? I've never used them. I've tried to a couple of times. And, those couple of times, I don't know where auction.com gets their leads or their deal flow from, but the ones that I was interested in that showed up on auction.com, they never actually went to auction. So something happened. Maybe the owner got out of the foreclosure process, or I don't know, maybe it was somehow otherwise settled or sold. I'm not familiar with like the outcomes, but I haven't had success. I've registered for a lot of properties on auction.com, but none of it ever worked. So that's my opinion on auction.com. All right, so I am now officially live on both YouTube and Instagram. This is exciting. I'm trying to get into the TikTok game as well, so I started posting some stuff there. I'm not familiar with that platform at all, but I figured since 2022, I'm trying to really ramp up all the social media content production and all. I think there's a lot of value in that, and just one of the things that I'm really kind of getting into or sensitive about is making sure that I'm providing enough value elsewhere, and also just giving enough information. The whole freely give freely receive thing is important to me, so I just want to make sure that I'm doing my part in helping the people that want to actually change their lives. Because when I was in law enforcement, and it was important for my wife and I that she'd be a stay-at-home mom, and I started looking at my paychecks and realized that I just couldn't quite swing it off my law enforcement salary alone. I mean, that was a tough pill to swallow. So I decided to start reading about one book per day and figure out how to make more money. Real estate, by the way, spoiler, real estate is pretty solid. Also, just going through and categorizing like my strengths, trying to do like an inventory on what I was good at, what I was really bad at, and trying to figure out a way to monetize my skill set. And one of them was my work ethic. So I was very confident in my ability to work, and I thought that I could do it very persistently. And, comparatively speaking to the people that I had, around me at the time, that was definitely a strength. So, and just like all the books that I was reading and whatnot, I decided that, commission only sales role was probably something that would benefit me because I would be able to kind of monetize my work ethic. So that's what led me to sales. And then whenever I got into sales, I was selling life insurance at first. And life insurance is a lot like flipping a house. You get paid a lot once, but you never get paid again. So what I learned from selling life insurance is that even if I was making really good money, I had trouble sleeping at night. I just wasn't comfortable not knowing where my next paycheck was going to come from. So I decided that I needed to figure out a way to make residual income on a monthly basis that was less dependent on how hard that I worked that day. And there was also just no relationship building in that life insurance game because it's such a churn and burn type atmosphere. And that's against my skill set too. I'm one of these personalities where it takes multiple exposures to like them. Man, always on time. I keep trying to click your comment to put it up on the screen, but that's a YouTube thing. That's not an Instagram thing. Is there a difficult pulling permits after buying these properties? Does the city have an urgency to renovate them? So when I first started with these properties, the first big renovations that I did, some of them were like they came from the city. So the foreclosures that I have that I say that I got for $2,500, yeah, the city was pretty hands-on on those. And since they had been vacant for so long, the electric and the gas, you had to have them inspected before the county or the municipality, whatever, the utility company would turn them back on. So for those, I had to get permits, and I had to have all the proper things done before the city would turn them back on, which, we're super thankful for. That's the right way to go about doing things. And, but from there, I mean, the city is kind of lax on permits and whatnot. The only thing that you need to pull permits for is if the utilities have been off for quite some time, the utility companies will require that the permits be pulled and the city inspect them. Other than that, from my understanding, it's all structural stuff. So for the historic properties that we've got, I mean, the only time that we need to get permission to do stuff is when we are messing with the exterior because there are certain guidelines that we have to follow. However, if it's not structural, then we don't really have to mess with it. So a lot of like the painting, the flooring, all of that stuff, we don't have to mess with it. So fortunately, Dayton's pretty lax. Let's see here. I got a question on YouTube since I'm streaming there too. It's, hey Ryan, I've been planning on contacting you for a while now to ask your opinion on how I should go about purchasing my home. I'm a 19-year-old kid in the Midwest that recently started trade school and carpentry, and I've been saving my money since I started to buy a home during the summer of 2022. My budget is around $30,000 and $50,000 due to the fact that I'm planning on paying the home off as soon as possible. And if I pay closer to $30,000, I plan on needing to add cosmetic renovations, which is, man, this is a really well thought out question. I really appreciate you typing all this stuff into the computer machine. So just while you're continuing to type the remainder of that, I mean, oh, there you go. Which is perfect because I'm learning carpentry, which is great practice. Sorry for multiple messages. YouTube only allows so many letters in one message. That's fine. I appreciate it. So for those of you on Instagram, that's like it's like 4 different comments. I'm going to reread that just so I get everything. Hey Ryan, I've been planning on contacting you for a while now to ask your opinion on how I should go about purchasing my home. I'm a 19-year-old kid in the Midwest that recently started trade school in carpentry, and I've been saving my money since I started to buy a home during the summer of 2022. My budget is around $30,000 and $50,000 due to the fact that I plan on paying the home off as soon as possible. And if I pay closer to $30,000, I plan on needing to add cosmetic renovations, which is perfect because I'm learning carpentry, which is great practice. So, all right. So awesome. Great job on being 19. You're in a good headspace. I accidentally bought my first house at 23, but it most certainly was not on purpose. I don't know how much you have saved. I know you said your budget is 30 to 50,000. So since this is your first house, even though you're learning a trade, I think what I would recommend is buying something that already is pretty well. I mean, don't get me wrong, definitely get something on a discount. And it doesn't really sound like this is too urgent that you buy your house since you're saving up and you're wanting to do it for the summer of 2022. However, since you're 19 and since you are starting a trade, what I would highly recommend is that you figure out you're going to have $30,000 close to summer. Okay. So I would not recommend that you've got a 700 credit score and $30,000. I would not recommend that you try and pay off this house as soon as possible. And I've got a couple of good videos on why I don't think people should pay off their homes. But as young as you are, it is increasingly important that you don't. Right now, especially since you're this young and you are about to buy a home when interest rates are still like historically as low as they've ever been. So the second property that I bought, I mean, the entire price was $28,000, but that down payment was about $7,000. And then the closing costs were close to about $3,000 as well. So we bought a house that my wife and I would love to have lived in for $10,000. And since you're 19 starting to trade, what I would recommend is that you find a friend or two and rent the other rooms of that house out. I would not live by yourself in a house. I would get a loan for the property. So I would shoot for something maybe around the $60,000 to $70,000 range. Since you're in the Midwest, that should get you a pretty close to immediately occupiable property as possible. For the $60,000, $70,000, let's see, since you're going to live in there, even if you put 5% down. Now, this is funny since I'm using my phone for Instagram. I don't have my calculator. Let's see here, $60,000. I should just be able to do that. 5% down. So now you're looking at, I mean, a down payment of like $3,000 to $5,000. So that way you can keep a lot of your powder dry. You can keep, $25,000 in your bank account for any sort of repairs that might ever be needed. You're going to lock in an interest rate that's less than 5%. And right now, I mean, you've got inflation sitting at 6 or 7%. So if you factor in inflation, then you're likely even going to be getting paid to purchase that house. So, and since you're 19, that 30-year mortgage, you're going to be left with a paid off house whenever you're 49. So it sounds like not being in debt is a little bit important to you. But as far as your house goes, I would highly recommend that you rethink that a little bit. And since you seem to be as focused as you are, if it really bothers you, what I would do is I would have enough money or equity in other things that if things got bad, you could liquidate them and pay off your loan. But while you're on the lower end of the historically low interest rates, I would go ahead, get a loan, put some down, keep a fat savings account. That way you're prepared for anything that could go wrong with the house. Get 2 or 3 buddies together, rent out the rooms to them in excess of the mortgage. So let's say you've got like a $60,000 mortgage. It's kind of, not having my phone because it's on Instagram is a little bit strange. Let me log on to Bank Rate real quick since I can't access the Ingram rental calculator. Let's see here. So if you put $5,000 down, you've got a loan amount of $55,000, 30 years. Let's do 5%. You're looking at a monthly mortgage payment, not the taxes or insurance, but the monthly payment is $300. So if you rent out to your 19, 20-year-old buddies, if you rent out a room to them for $300 each per month, first off, they're not going to be able to find anywhere cheaper than that to live. Second off, you are going to be getting paid to own that home, and you're going to be able to live for free. You should be left with around $300. Let's say $150 on top of the taxes and insurance. So that you're going to be set, man. I think that's really smart. And then I would also, as you're looking at this first property, it sounds like you already are since you're looking for a fixer upper. But I would, the entire time that you're living in this property, I would just go ahead and act like it's a rental. I would go ahead and say, you're going to live there for a year, 6 months to a year. You're going to rent out the rooms to other people, and then once you live there for a year, you'll be able to qualify for another owner occupied loan. You're young, presumably you don't have a wife or kids, so you're going to be able to buy another one of these 6 months to a year from now and do the entire process again. You're going to be able to rent out your first property. Instead of $300 per room to your buddies, you can probably rent it out for about $800, given like the Midwest prices that we're talking about. So you're still going to have a very positive cash flow. You're still going to have a $25,000 to $30,000 savings account that you're going to continually add to on a regular basis, since you're in that savings mindset. And then you're probably going to be left with a decent amount of equity, because housing prices, in my opinion, aren't going to do anything but go up still. All right, back to Instagram. Let's see what all people have said. Does the city have an urgency to renovate them? No. That program that they used to have, there was an urgency, but not really so much anymore. Ortiz, what's up, man? What are your thoughts on owner-occupied FHA duplex and renting other side out? Is there opportunity for that in Dayton? Yes, there's opportunity for that in Dayton. FHA isn't really important in that equation. The only thing that FHA does is make you put $0 down or 0% down. If you're a first-time home buyer, you would be able to swing that. But I mean, you're looking at 3.5% to 5% down on an owner-occupied property. And if you're looking at like the sub $75,000 loan market, either in Dayton or anywhere else, then I mean, 3.5% isn't like $2,000 to $5,000, somewhere in there. I feel crippled without using my phone as this live stream thing. But yeah, so I would highly recommend that you do that. I mean, I accidentally started house hacking whenever I was 23. Didn't intend to do it, but I did, and it was very helpful. I think if I were you, if I were getting started, or if I didn't have as many kids as I do, I would actively, like, all I would be doing would be buying 4 units, living in one of them, renting out the other rooms of the 4 unit that I lived in, and live there for 6 months to a year, and then buy another one and another one and another one. And I don't necessarily want to build an entire portfolio of 4 units, but while I'm trying to like maximize my time, energy, and effort when I'm just getting started, I think going the 4 unit route compared to the duplex route makes a lot more sense, because the 4 unit is going to leave you with a lot more profit than just your duplex. Like a duplex, you're probably going to break even. You're going to be able to live for free, which is fantastic. That's going to free up all your active income just to invest. However, the 4 unit is going to leave you with $800 to $1,000 per month in cash flow that you're going to be able to reinvest into other properties. So, I'm using my second rental property that I bought just because I have those numbers ingrained in my head. But I mean, that property, we purchased it for $28,000. So the down payment was $7,000. With the closing costs, we were closer to $10,000. But I mean, if you're bringing home $800 to $1,000 per month of investable income from your, owner-occupied 4 unit building, then you're going to be able to put a down payment down on another property every 9 to 10 months. It's a pretty life-changing situation to be in. And again, these are Midwest prices, since we're talking about Dayton. I completely understand that you're not able to do that in different markets. You definitely can't do it in markets that cost $400,000 to $500,000. Yeah, good to see you, Ortiz. Seems like just yesterday, man. I'm really impressed at how quickly time has flown. Jeremy H has joined the party. Pretty excited. All right, back to YouTube real quick. So is it smart to get such a long-term loan, even though the house doesn't cost that much? Because I could easily pay more than $300 a month for a while without renting out, then move out to get another. Yes, Yes, it is smart to get a loan to get another home to purchase something else, like you said. So it all comes down to like your comfort level, your risk tolerance, and your personal preferences. If it's going to keep you up at night, if you're uncomfortable with the idea of taking out a loan, Mr. Live Your Best Life. What's up, man? Welcome. If it's going to make you uncomfortable, if you're going to lose sleep to take out a loan, then I wouldn't do it. Um, and I would go your route. But because you're 19, if you can tolerate having a loan, then you're going to be in a much better position. It doesn't matter. You're not going to need to pay it off because let's say you've got, I've got the number $300 written down. So if your mortgage payment is $300, yes, you're going to be paying off some interest, but all the principal that you're paying is going to go against the balance that you owe. In addition, since we're sitting on the historically the low end of interest rates for properties, I mean, let's say you get like a sub 5% loan. The average rate of inflation, historically on average, it's been about 3.22% per year, which is, probably low because that was before they've started printing all of this money. So if your interest rate is 3.22%, that's the inflation rate. You're looking at, and if your loan is less than 5%, let's just use 5, then you're looking at like a 1.88% actual interest rate that you're paying. And now that's really cheap money. And the question that you have to ask yourself is, if you have $60,000 sitting in a loan at 1.88% interest, is it worth can you go out? Can you take that $60,000 and go out and make more money at a higher rate of return than that 1.88%? If the answer is no, then you're right. Paying off your loan is better. But since you have already said all of the things that you have, I know that you're in the right mindset. You're saving money, you're looking for opportunities, you're trying to work really hard and exercise your newfound skill sets. You're not going to have any difficulty at all making money at a higher rate than 1.88. We don't even have to consider inflation. You're going to be able to go out and make money at a higher rate than 5%. So, especially because I mean, the renter, whoever you have in there, whether you're renting out the other rooms or if you are just renting out the entire home, whoever is renting from you is the actual one that's paying that 5%. It's in your name, but they're the ones paying for it. I plan on taking out a loan because other people take out loans for college, and I've just chose a different route. Plus, paying on that loan would help my credit. Man, you're so close. You're so close to thinking about this appropriately. So I like that point there a lot. But there is a fundamental difference between what they're taking out loans for and what you are taking out loans for. If you take out a loan for this property, are going to be able to immediately start realizing income and profit from that debt. The people that are taking out these loans for college or whatever, I mean, they're at least 4 years out from utilizing that degree and making money from it. So it's apples and oranges. I would, I'm so close to saying that all college debt is bad debt because, because the internet posts everything that Elon Musk ever thinks or says. I know that he said that for SpaceX, Tesla, whoever, they don't even care if you've got a degree or not. And so many businesses are going in that direction. I think you're extraordinarily wise for going into a trade rather than college. And as somebody who's completed half of a PhD program, it took me a very long time to realize that academia is not the way to go in the system that we're in at the moment. So anytime you've got the ability to get a loan and make more money than the loan costs you, then you should probably do it. So the way that my brother and I have built this 200 plus unit portfolio is all through utilizing other people's money. So at this point, I'm pretty confident and pretty proud to say that we have zero of our own dollars into our portfolio at this point. It's all built on other people's money. Now, if you do not have the aspirations of building a massive portfolio, if you just want to replace, let's say, $5,000 or $10,000 of monthly income, then perhaps you wouldn't need to go to the extreme that we have to get additional properties. And maybe you would be better off with a fewer number of properties and just owning the majority of them free and clear. It really comes down to your personal preference, your goals for yourself, kind of your visions for what you want your life to look like, where you want to spend your time, what type of problems you want to have, all that. No, man, you're not taking over the stream at all. So I originally went live on Instagram, which is where I would love for this conversation to be happening. But at first, when I started the Instagram live stream, it's the first time I've ever done it. And no one was on. We had like 1 or 2 people. So I decided to go live on YouTube as well and run a little ticker that says live on Instagram at Ryan Ingram 88. All right. Let's see if Instagram has any questions. Good to see you, my friend. And real estate debt reduction equals increased equity. Real estate debt can be leveraged where student loans can't. Right. So, I mean, that's a really good point. So the student loan debt, there's no equity anywhere. So you can't, when you are paying off that debt, it's not like you can go to the bank and say, hey, I've got $60,000 worth of student collegiate knowledge. Will you give me a loan on that? So, I mean, even if you buy this property outright and don't take out a loan, anytime you got strapped for cash, you could go to a bank and you could say, hey, I've got this property. There's no mortgage on it. Can we use this as security to get, $5, $10, $15, $30,000, whatever you need? You can't do that with student loans. And each time, to JR's point, Mr. Live Your Best Life, each time you make that loan payment, you get a little bit more of equity that you could then approach the bank with. And I mean, if something crazy happened, you buy a house for $60,000, the market appreciates, that house is now worth $120,000. You've got $60,000 of equity there that you would have to be selective. You would have to go out of your way to find a bank willing to do this. But I mean, you could easily get like a second mortgage or a line of credit with like a second position mortgage attached to it and borrow whatever money that you need. Not to mention the money that you borrow is tax-free because it's debt, not income. Hey, AR Ortiz, 93. Got the whole Ortiz family in the house. There's a lot of you guys, though. Is there much of a high-end market in the Dayton area? If you guys are even related at all. A high-end market in the Dayton area. Yeah, you've got some suburbs. You've got some suburbs where Dayton, like you've got Beaver Creek, that's probably the highest end. You've got Oakwood, a stone's throw. Oakwood is where the Wright brothers built their mansion before they passed. Oakwood generally runs about $250 per square foot. So that's extraordinarily expensive compared to the videos that I normally post on either YouTube or the little clips that I show on Instagram. So that's like a high-end market, I would say. Centerville, Kettering. We've started buying a couple properties in Kettering whenever we have the opportunity to do so. And that's where some of the higher priced properties that we purchased have come from. Like our nicest rental that we have is a Kettering property. We bought it for $125,000. We put about $15,000 into it. And at this point, it's, I think it just appraised for like 250, somewhere between 220 or 250. But that's not reasonable for many reasons. It's different from the question that you asked. So I'll try not to go on a tangent about it. Is there much of a high-end market? So yeah, I answered that question. But as far as the city limits of Dayton go, not really. And I think the school system is the reason for that. So Dayton is one of these places that was really hurt, similar to Detroit or Toledo or any of like the Rust Belt spots that were really big during like the automotive boom. So I think like right now I'm in downtown Dayton where my office is, and about 40%, there's only 40% occupancy of downtown. So that's not good, but it kind of gives you a little bit of insight as to Dayton's issues. Trying to make it like you. You're funny, man. You're well on your way getting that second property. Congrats on that. So I mentioned we're trying to buy a couple properties in Kettering, like as we're able, and I don't have a really good reason for that. It's kind of I think it's more of an emotional thing than a return on investment thing. And I had a conversation with one of my mentors at one point, and I mean, he just said, don't be afraid to go into the higher valued markets whenever you've got the opportunity to do so. Not to go solely there, but just to balance out your portfolio a little bit. And, it helps when you're refinancing multiple properties at a time, I would say. And I would say that it's been helpful for us because a lot of banks don't want to mess with properties that are less than like $75,000, even like the local credit unions. And, like I mentioned, that second property that I bought, it was $28,000. We paid like $2,000 to $3,000 worth of closing costs, which is like close to 10% of the purchase price, because a lot of times all of the fees and whatnot associated with closing a property are not dependent on the actual loan size. They're just flat fees. So it's really expensive. It requires all the same amount of work to do a $25,000 house as it does to do a $250,000 house. So because of that, a lot of lenders want to focus on doing the 250. Plus, when you get into the lower markets, you've got like presumably you have like a higher I don't believe that. I was about to say a higher rate of default, but I don't know that. I don't think that's true. But all of the work, like the foreclosure process, I mean, that's still going to cost the same amount of money. So the lower loans are actually more expensive when you're looking at it on a percentage basis because everything is done on flat fees. So if it costs just as much to repossess a $250,000 house as it does a $25,000 house, the impact is going to be much larger on that $25,000 than it does on the $250,000. Trying to make it like you. I read that. It's so funny. My goal for myself is to finish trade school and move on to buying properties like you and doing some renovations myself. And I'll also personally know contractors to contact if they're ever needed. Oh, you will need them. You're definitely going to need them. Would love to talk to you as much as I can to learn all I can before I make my move. Yeah, man, bring it on. I'm live on YouTube every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard. I'm going to try to figure out how to go live on Instagram and TikTok as well. But I think TikTok, you need more than 1,000 people. So I started posting over there whenever that is possible. I'm trying to make big moves in 2022. So we're going to try to buy 200 properties this year. And I'm also trying to, put a big emphasis on the social media stuff. We've had a lot of success on this. I would say, as far as like finishing trade school and doing the renovations by yourself, I think that's smart. I don't know how old you are, but if you're finishing trade school, presumably you're pretty young or a late bloomer, which there's no downside to that either. I've gone back and forth on this for a while, and I have thoughts about this. So there were two properties that I did myself, and I did not do a good job because I don't know anything about the trades or contracting or doing things. When you're first getting started, I would say being more hands-on and cutting costs and saving to be profitable faster, to be able to be more bankable sooner, is probably a really solid strategy. But also, just once you get into the financial side of investing in real estate, and once you get like a solid grasp on analyzing properties and refinancing them, then you're probably going to be able to it probably makes more sense financially to do that than actually doing the renovations yourself. I've seen it both ways. I know one guy that's got like 40 or 50 properties. He does all of his own work. He makes it work. He makes boatloads of money because he also has a very low basis on all of his properties since he does all of his own work. So there's pros and cons to all of them. That gives context because from my research, the schools were ranked 1 across the board from elementary to high school. That with what you said kind of makes sense. 1 being the lowest ranking. Yeah, Dayton schools are horrible, but everybody knows it. Even Dayton. So Dayton, because the schools are so bad, I'm trying really hard right now to move into the city limits of Dayton because since I am a huge fan of Dayton, and because I fully anticipate and plan on if I live if I live long enough to spend the rest of my life fully devoted to making a particular area of Dayton significantly better. And because of that, I feel like I need to live there too to really put my money where my mouth is, or whatever the saying is. So when I started thinking about moving to Dayton, my wife and I were first concerned about the school systems. Not that I put much emphasis in that at all. I've spoken on my opinion about school systems on the live stream for a while, and they're not good. But in researching them, we learned that the city of Dayton has like a voucher program. So if you live in the city of Dayton, but you don't want your kids to go to city of Dayton schools, they have vouchers that you can apply for. Pretty much everybody gets them. And you can go to any of the private schools in the city that voucher is good for. And you might even be able to take them to different school districts. I'm not quite sure about that part. But as far as like Dayton Christian is one of the private schools that accepts the vouchers. There's a big one. I can't say it. People abbreviate it CJ. It's like Chaminade Julianne or something. You can go there. It's a good idea. Another question on YouTube. After the Friday live, I started looking on houses on HUD. How long does the process take there? That's a good question. So HUD homes, I mean, if you are buying it to live in it, as soon as it's listed, you can buy them there. You can bid on them and it might be submitted. But if you are an investor, if you are not going to live there, then the property has to be listed for like 14 days on the HUD home store before you can bid on it as an investor. From that point, I mean, it really depends. I would say for the most part, you're not going to close inside of 30 days, I don't think. I mean, you might get lucky and close after like day 20 or something. But from my experience, just in thinking on the fly here, I would say it took 30 plus days to close on all of our HUD properties. Oh, man. All right. I'm still new to this. What do you think about putting as little as possible of a down payment, about 15%, as opposed to 20% to knock off the PMI? I'm not worried about PMI. I think so long as you bake the PMI into your numbers whenever you are analyzing the property, I would say you're probably fine. I wouldn't worry about it. I think getting the property is probably more important than paying off PMI. And just on like my personal loan, I mean, at that point, if PMI is like what, $50 a month or so, and you're looking at like a $250,000 house, that extra 10% is $25,000. So the same advice I was given earlier, like, can you take $25,000 and use that to make more than $50 per month? If the answer is yes, then you shouldn't worry yourself about paying off that PMI, because dropping 25 grand into equity just to save $50 a month, I don't know the exact rate of return on that, but it's real low. So, I mean, just thinking out loud, $25,000 invested at 10% would be $2,500 a year. 2,500 divided by 12. Yeah, so you're a lot higher. You're substantially higher than $50 per month. So don't worry about PMI. Just bake it into your numbers and make sure that all of your expenses, all of your payments and whatnot leave you with $300 or more of positive cash flow. If you can do that, you're likely going to be fine. Thank you. We just got, I'm always really impressed when I am on other people's live streams. I mean, obviously, they've got a lot more people than I do on their live streams, but they always have so much inappropriate stuff going on in the chat. And very infrequently do we ever get anything inappropriate. But we just got the first one of the day on YouTube. So great information to know. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. For those of you that aren't, I mean, again, I'm putting a big emphasis. I'm going to do a lot of stuff on YouTube, on all the social media platforms over the next year. I really want to double down on the social media, really kick this stuff off and be as helpful as possible. I have zero interest in ever having like a paid course. I think I might put a course together just for like real estate investors for beginners, for people that have like zero properties that are looking in. I did a poll on YouTube. I think on like Thursday or Friday of how many rental properties do you have, and I think around 50 people voted, and I would say like 75%, if I'm remembering correctly, were at zero properties. So that made me realize that I completely misinterpreted my market. I thought that most people had probably like 5+ properties. So I think I've probably been misspeaking. I will not buy a Gucci belt. But the course will probably, I mean, it was definitely gonna be free. I have again, a lot of my mentors gave me tons of info free of charge. I plan on doing the same. I do have that, that mastermind that's paid, but that's to be around the right people, stay motivated and whatnot, not a cost just to get the information on how to get started, So that's my thoughts on it. So if you guys at all ever come up with anything that you want to hear that would be beneficial for you, let me know. I'm really happy to answer all the questions. I'm going to try to go live a little bit more as well, but at the same time, I think a course will also be solid just to get started, just so to get us all on the same page. What are your thoughts on using a Heloc? Are there any conditions you set for yourself before using one? So if it's a home equity line of credit, I know that's what Heloc stands for, but I'm saying like if it's on your home, not an investment property, then I know the terms or conditions of those are just a little bit different. So you've got, I think the payback period might be like 10 years, which really changes my answer. So if you've got 10 years to pay back the home equity line of credit, I think I'd be a little bit more lenient in how you use the funds from the Heloc. But I would just say that any money you utilize from your Heloc should most certainly be used to acquire income producing assets. So I would not use Helocs for like working capital on properties unless you are making renovations that's going to improve the value of it and you're able to refinance. But the tricky part about lines of credits is it's all short-term debt. The commercial lines of credit, I mean, generally they're renewable on an annual basis. And they are ones that you need to pay off very frequently. So from a bank's perspective, the way that you appropriately use a line of credit is for like short-term assets or working capital, which means you need to regularly bring that down to zero. And from personal experience, when you're paying for a renovation or acquiring a property, it's really difficult to get that balance down to zero without refinancing or restructuring some of your debt on the property. So my biggest advice on lines of credit are going to be careful, make sure that you're able to take that account down to zero multiple times throughout the year, and use short-term debt to acquire short-term assets. We got in quite a bit of a pickle whenever we used one of our lines of credit to acquire some long-term properties. The refinance kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed, and we needed to pay that line of credit off. So that put us in a tight spot for a little bit. So yeah, that's my thought there. Zach Reichert, what's up, man? Bouncing from Instagram to YouTube, I see. You could probably watch YouTube in the background, and Instagram probably not. Huh? What are your thoughts on Section 8? Do you have any Section 8 properties? We do have Section 8 properties, but at this point, right now, we are not accepting new Section 8 applicants. We are only servicing the inherited Section 8 properties. And the reason why is we recently, it was at the onset of this thing that we're in, effective March 2020. And we were flagged. Now, we inherited this person, but we were flagged as needing like a new roof to stop some leaks, which, you know, we're more than happy to do. And we were not able to collect the rent owed to us until after the repairs were made. But, you know, replacing a roof is a heavy ordeal. So it took us quite some time. And we had it tarped. We stopped the leak and all. But by the time that the roof was done, I think it was like 2.5 or 3 months had passed. And then Section 8 said, we are not going to back pay your rent because it took you too long. So at that point, we decided that never again are we going to work with anyone that has the ability to tell us they do not owe us money, you know? So we might change our mind in the future, but right now the private market is hot enough to rent out these properties without government programs. Walking in royalty. Let's see what you got to say. Let's see. Let me check Instagram real quick. We've got 4 people on Instagram and 8 people on YouTube. We're going places today. Hi, my parents' house is vacant. My mom passed 2 years ago. They only owe $77,000 on the house with comps in the area at $180,000 to $200,000 with a 10.5% interest rate. Should I refinance or get a Heloc? I would refi, meaning to upgrade it to get it rent ready. Heloc or refinance. I would refinance it. Well, so it depends on if you want to take cash out of the property. I mean, since $77,000 is owed, and since the comps being at $180,000 to $200,000, likely as is, it's worth more than $77,000. So if you just want to refinance that existing $77,000 to lower that 10.5 interest rate, then I think you could do that, and you would be better off. If you think it can appraise right now for $100,000 and it needs $30,000 worth of work, I would just again go ahead and refinance it, get it on long-term debt right now, so that you could avoid some fees and some headache. If you're looking for a big payday and you want to get as much cash as you possibly can on this refinance, since it's worth $180,000 or $200,000, and you want to maximize how much cash you can take out, first off, I would make sure that you can rent the place out for more than you're borrowing, right? Don't go negative just to get more cash on hand. On a cash flow perspective, don't go negative. If you want to max out your cash out refi, I would recommend getting the Heloc first, getting it in tip-top shape, making it near that 200 mark, and then do a long-term cash out refi on like a 30-year and pay off that Heloc. That way the property would appraise for $200,000 because it's the best property on the block. Everything's brand new. And then you would be able to get the most amount of cash out. But if you're not looking to have a big influx of capital, if you're just looking to make it a good house, make it a solid rental for someone, get yourself out of that 10.5% interest rate, I would just say go ahead and refi long term. Whatever cash you get out, put it back into the property to freshen it up and keep it rolling as a rental. That's what I would do. But take that for what it's worth. Free advice. What are your thoughts on the Heloc? Answered that question. No Gucci belt. Let me see if I've missed anything on this Instagram. This is funny. Edwin Janeo, what's up, man? Happy Sunday afternoon. I'm happy to see you on here. I'm trying to step my game up for 2022. I know I've said that multiple times on these live streams so far, but I'm trying to make it work. Haven't looked into Section 8 much yet, but I was curious about the ability to choose tenants. My grandmother is a Section 8 tenant. Could I buy a property and place her in the property, or does Section 8 choose? So you still, even if you have Section 8, yep, you still have to go through the process with that landlord. So you are still going to be able to select your resident. Just because they qualify for Section 8 and you want to rent the place out to Section 8, they do not do your screening for you. So you still have to screen the applicant just like you would anyone else. I think one of the biggest mistakes that you could do is say, okay, I want a Section 8 resident, and then anybody with Section 8, you just kind of let them in there. That's not how that works. So you can still deny or have criteria above and beyond Section 8 standard, which would make someone that has a Section 8 voucher not eligible to live in your property still. These equal and fair housing people have a lot of rules and whatnot, and I would definitely, we're actually looking for a class to take to make sure that we do everything on the up and up with them. We're looking for a class that we could all take as a company to make sure that we're all good. But as far as Section 8 goes, yeah, you get to pick. And also, from my understanding, is you can have a relative have a Section 8 voucher and live in one of your properties. I'm pretty positive you can do that. Nella Richie, what is up? Thank you. I have to listen to the replay to get all that. I would say, in summary, if you want to get the most amount of money back when you do the refinance, take a pit stop by the Heloc. If you just want to get out of that high interest loan, but still get the property up to speed, if the property can appraise for somewhere around the 120, 130 mark, I would just take whatever cash you can get out of that, renovate the property, freshen it up a little bit, and get a person living there, and go ahead and go straight to long term. But if you want to maximize the cash out, the Heloc route is the way to go. How do you identify good equity partners? Well, that's a great question. And I started off the live stream talking about partners and my views on them this past Friday. But ultimately, I'm not a fan of equity partners. We did it a little bit when we first started because capital was our issue. So we have two partnerships that we formed where we brought 50% of the capital and the other people brought 50% of the capital. And from there, our requirements really, or the things that we kind of thought through together, is like what our long-term vision were. From like a character perspective, we made sure we're on the same page. High integrity, of course. All of our partners are Christians. That's not, that wasn't one of the things for the longest time. I just kind of considered like if you're a Christian, then presumably the values and whatnot are the same. So I probably made some partnerships and agreed on some business things just based on that I shouldn't have. But hey, we all have to pay our business tuition. You either pay a school to learn it or you pay the real world when you get taken advantage of or slighted. But yeah, character traits were really big on that. I mean, obviously, you want to be careful who you do business with, especially in the form of an equity partner. The most recent equity partner that we formed, they brought 100% of the cash. We brought 100% of the work. So they don't do any work. They just bring the capital whenever it's needed. And the equity is 50-50. So I'd probably be more inclined to do things like that again. But if you have the ability, our current standpoint on partnerships is if you have the ability to not bring one on, then you probably shouldn't bring one on. So if it's a capital thing, equity partnerships, that's a very, very high level or very expensive money just to take down a deal. Giving away equity to take down a deal is expensive. If you've got no money and no track record, giving up equity for taking down a deal might be a good idea. Can you explain that one more time, please? LOL. Yeah. So you're saying that this is the $77,000. This is mom's house. The current loan is $77,000. It's at 10.5% interest. So that's high, given the where we are now with interest rates. But only 77,000 is owed. You've got comps that show that it's worth 180 to 200,000. So if you are looking for a really big payday walking in royalty, if you want to leave the closing table with, $50,000 in your pocket, which would be tax-free, by the way, because it's debt, not profit, then what I would do if you want a big payday is I would take out a Heloc or some other short-term capital, maybe like private money or a hard money lender, and I would rehab the property. I would take out a Heloc or a loan with a hard money lender to get that property up to speed. See if you could borrow like $30,000. That way, after you borrow the $30,000, you're all in at $107,000 if it needs $30,000 worth of work. And if you can put $30,000 into it to make it look like one of the properties that are selling for $200,000, then that's what I would do. That way, I should be able to do this off the top of my head. Yeah, I can. So 200,000, 75% of that is 150,000. So if you can take your mom's loan at 77,000, take $30,000 from a Heloc or a hard money lender, and make that property worth 200, then your basis is 107,000. Now, if the property is worth 200,000, but you owe 107,000, if it's worth 200,000, 75% of that, which is what you're going to be able to do a cash out refinance at, is 150. So 150 minus 107 is 43 grand. So you're going to be able to walk away from closing with like 40 grand. If you are not interested in getting a check at closing for $40,000, which there are a lot, as crazy as that sounds, there's a lot of good reasons to not necessarily want that much money back. Mainly if it's going to make that property, like if it's going to make the property not cash flow on a monthly basis because of the rent rates, then you do not want to do that. Don't go negative just to get more of a lump sum. Bad idea. You could get pinched for that later. So if it's going to make your cash flow go negative, or if you're just not interested in having 40,000 and you don't want to do that, what I would do is just assume that the property is worth, 140, 150 in as is condition. And I would do a refinance right now to long-term debt, just on an as is basis, and freshen up the property with whatever you can get. I hope that's better. I hope that makes sense. Brown Girl Realty, welcome. I'm live on YouTube as well, so I've got 11 on YouTube, 5 on Instagram. So questions are coming from both sides. Heloc or refinance? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. A Heloc, if you want to, I would not do a Heloc at all long term. You're going to want to switch over to long-term debt, something that you could pay on for 20 to 30 years. So my answer is refinance. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks for the info. I'll have to do some more digging into the process. Got to hop off here, but expect to see more of me in these live streams in 2022. The goal is to go from 1 to 3 rentals in 2022. That's awesome. You can definitely do that. Are all the Mastermind participants based in Dayton? And how often do you all meet? No, there are Mastermind people from all over the place. So we've got, if you want to get technical, we're even international. We've got one guy that's in Guam. We've got several are here in Ohio. Some are in Florida. I get this confused each time, either Milwaukee or Wisconsin. No, Milwaukee is in Wisconsin. Minnesota, either Minnesota or Wisconsin. I don't know. He's somewhere over there. Florida, California, Virginia. Yeah, not all Dayton. There are a lot of guys in Dayton, but not all of them. We meet once a week, so it's an hour-long meeting. and the way that it's set up or structured. I did a video on it. It's called Sequism Mastermind. You can type that in on YouTube. It's like a 25, 30-minute explanation of the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, every week there are two men in the middle, and whatever question, problem, whatever you want feedback on, professionally or personally, you can just open it up to the group, describe your problem, get some feedback, go out, take action, fix your problem with said feedback. It's a really solid group of guys. I'm really proud of that group. There's some guys in there with a lot of doors, a lot of go-getters and high achievers in that group. All right. This was kind of fun. My kid's nap time is over at 3:30, so my availability on the Sunday afternoon is dwindling. So any questions you guys have in the next 10 minutes or so, I'm happy to answer. This was a fun experience going live on Instagram. It wasn't as uncomfortable as I expected it to be. I don't have nearly the following on YouTube, and on YouTube, everybody kind of knows what to expect. This is the first time I've done anything like this on Instagram, so it was a good time. Next up, TikTok. All right. Well, any other questions? Any other questions? I have a property in Florida still underwater as to my mortgage, thinking of forcing value by adding an accessory dwelling unit. I have been immersed in real estate since mom passed. I don't know if I would recommend the accessory dwelling unit thing. I know those are a big deal and helpful in like hot markets, especially the ones where people want to Airbnb a lot. And I know there's been a lot of success stories about building that unit, doing an Airbnb, and collecting a lot of money, enough to pay the mortgage on a monthly basis. But, in markets where it doesn't work, it's really strange. So like the properties here in Dayton that have two properties on the same parcel, it just gets complicated. It's strange from an insurance perspective. It's strange from a resale perspective. I'm not so sure if you can get your money back. And again, don't take me as gospel on this, because I don't know anything about accessory dwelling units or these ADUs, other than from the insurance perspective. But I'm just not so sure how they hold up on the resale side. Who's a carrot? Thanks for all the great info, Ryan. Yeah, thanks for being on here. This was fun. Trying to put together a plan of doing more shorts, doing more videos, going live more often. Let's see here. Another question on YouTube. So if I may ask one more question, of course you can. If I bank with a credit union and my bank isn't too big on home loans, should they direct me to where I'd get a loan, or is that something a realtor would find for me? A realtor, you should not. I would not look to realtors for bank related things. If I were you, what I would do is I would go to Facebook, Google, maybe even Bigger Pockets, and type in whatever area you're in. So if you're in like Charleston, West Virginia, type in Charleston, West Virginia real estate investors and see what pops up there. And you should find a group of a couple hundred people that regularly talk about, real estate investing, what banks to work with, what vendors to use. And I would ask that question there. There's probably already some banks in that group that like working with real estate investors. One of the most important things that I can't stress enough about real estate is every single problem that you could ever have has a price tag associated with it. So you don't need to, in real estate, you don't need to worry about running into a problem that you can't fix. You should probably worry about running out of money, but not running into a problem that you can't fix. because everything could be fixed with the right amount of dollars. The second thing that I would say is real estate is more like a franchise model than it is like starting a new business. So there are entire industries, like sub industries and like support professions around servicing the real estate industry. So all investors can solve their problems with contractors, realtors, bankers, all of these things. And nothing is new. There's nothing new about real estate investing, which is one of the main reasons that I highly disagree with people charging money to take courses. It's all available to you. You just got to look. So go to those groups, talk to other real estate investors, and find the professionals that like working with real estate investors. Also, will they try to get me the best deal with interest rates, or should I go in knowing what to tell them I need? Relationships make the world go round. You know, kind of my stance on this is I'm going to trust the professionals and experts to tell me the right thing until they take advantage of that, right? So I wouldn't be silly and only get like one quote, especially if you've never worked with someone before, right? But I would definitely go around and expect people to have your best interest until they prove you otherwise. I think that's just a pretty easy way to set yourself up for success, especially as far as relationships go. So talk to a few different people. I would say you get like 3 to 5 people to give you quotes and interest rates or whatnot. But right now, I mean, especially if they're going to sell your loan to Fannie Freddie, then it's all pretty much the same thing. If they're going to keep it inside their own portfolio, then you might pay a little bit higher interest rates, but that would build a better relationship with them long term. Let's see here. What was your day-to-day job when you began investing in real estate, currently leaving law enforcement? Yeah, so that was my day-to-day job, was law enforcement. And I'm happy you're leaving law enforcement. I think anybody that's currently in law enforcement that doesn't necessarily feel like they're called to law enforcement, to leave law enforcement, it's a really tough thing to come to grips with, especially just given the subculture of law enforcement and, really caring about the people you work with. It's tough to leave them. But as you know, law enforcement sucks. District 3C squad. Yeah, man. And hey, they're getting along just fine without me, Yeah, you might make me tear up, man, thinking about leaving them again. See, it's tough, Nate. It's tough to leave your people, but I'm better off for it, and so is my family. But if you're going to stay in law enforcement for 30 plus years, then what I just said is super cringe, right? But disassociating yourself with that law enforcement mentality is of utmost importance to actually leave and be successful outside of it. When considering making an offer on a property that is behind on taxes, should you pay the taxes and lower the offer, or make the seller pay taxes? So it's all going to be settled on the HUD, regardless of how you dice that up. I would just make sure that your overall purchase price considers that. So I think so. Here's let me reposition my handy dandy notepad, which I don't need because I know exactly what I'm going to say. My formula for buying a property, I think you should always follow whatever the appraised value is, subtract however much equity you want. So if a property is worth $200,000 and you want 10% equity from the time that you buy it, then you can't offer any more than $180,000. If the property needs any work, then you have to subtract the work that it needs from that 180,000. So if it needs a new roof, that's going to cost 10 grand. Well, now your highest and best offer is 170,000. If that property is behind 50 grand on taxes, then now your best, and it needs a new roof, well, now your best offer is 120,000. And that's the formula of investing in real estate. Now, everybody's number is different, right? So because of the quantity of offers that we send out, we really want to have 25% equity in the deal. So a lot of people, I just had a conversation with a guy that wants to sell a house. I offered $40,000 for it because it needs like $15,000 worth of work. He can likely sell it to somebody else that doesn't want 25% equity in the deal. If somebody's fine with 10% equity, then they could pay him more for that property, and that's what he should do. But if he wants to sell it quick with, as is, I ask for no repairs and I won't have cold feet, then $40,000 the price. So don't fall in love with a house. Make sure that it matches that formula, and make sure you're really thorough and honest with yourself about all the repairs that it needs, and factor that in to your offer. But it should all be settled on the HUD. Happy holidays. I own a home in New York City, thinking of borrowing from equity to pay off the second mortgage, and with the rest, start investing in rental properties. Any advice on where to begin? Well, it sounds like you figured out already exactly where to start. I guess you have to ask yourself, do you want to buy more properties in New York City, or do you want to enter a more affordable market? And then I would just go about researching the areas that you want to invest in and figure out where the best return on your money is going to be, where you're going to feel most comfortable from a long-term perspective. And the answer might be NYC, in which case you're going to buy $1 million 800 square foot home. But if you want your money to go further, then looking somewhere in the Midwest. I think the Midwest is the best area and the best deal at the moment. Brown Go Realty, you said thank you. And I say thank you. Thanks for being on the live stream, and thanks for asking that question. Hope it was helpful. Thank you for your help. I was just thinking about your channel to ask you my question, but thought you only came on Fridays. Very helpful. Yeah, normally I do, but I really wanted to give, right here, I've got this little banner that says live on Instagram. So I wanted to go live on Instagram today, and I wanted to see what would happen. But when I first started live on Instagram, one or two people were here, and it was just for a slow start. So I figured I'd open it up to YouTube, since I'm doing the same thing over there. So currently I've got 6 people on Instagram and 10 on the YouTubes. I'm in, man. 6 years in law enforcement and want more for me and my family out of life. Thanks for your channel and the great advice. Yeah, thanks for you. And feel free to shoot me an email whenever you need, man. Happy to help however I can, and happy to weigh in. And if it makes you feel any better, if it's any consolation, this is something that I don't think I've ever mentioned, but I think it's very helpful, is I'm still in the same group text with my squad as I was when I left, which makes me feel really good. So if I get sad at all, I just text them. So I will tell you though, man, I actually had to leave one night from my house because I since I'm still part of that group text message, I thought somebody that I worked with or knew at one point was in some sort of shooting, and it really made my heart sink. And that was the only time that I had like this massive guilt of, man, I should have never left. But after I collected myself, I was fine, and I'm still better off for it. It's just tough. It's a tough thing to do. How do you feel about the Chicago real estate market? If 90% of your state's population lives in one city, I don't think that's something that would attract me to invest there. I'm starting to see it in my youngest daughter as well, but I am most certainly a contrarian, right? Like I prefer to think of myself as the salmon in the stream. So if everybody in the entire state is flocking to Chicago, I don't think I would ever go there. And as someone that doesn't live in Chicago, that has all the opportunity in the world to visit Chicago, I can confidently tell you that I'm never going to go there. So. But that's not to say it's not a good place to invest. I write the insurance on a couple properties in Chicago, and the lady that owns them seems to do just fine with them. Well, got 5 people on Instagram, 11 on YouTube, and I think I'm going to call it a day. Nap time for my kids is about over, and I should probably get back home. So I sure do appreciate it. Instagram, for all you people, be on the lookout for me more here. And I posted a couple of reels on Instagram, and they did really well. Instagram was pushing them out to all sorts of people. One of them, I think, got like 10,000 views, and then the other ones I posted after that just kind of flopped. So, hey, I'm gonna be over here putting in this work. Thanks for all the info. Yeah, thanks for joining. Looking forward to talking to everybody a lot more. Ryan Baker, thanks, man. And sorry it took me so long to respond to several of your comments. The other day, I went through and I made it a point. I gave myself a week to get caught up on all the comments that have ever been posted to my YouTube channel. And I can confidently say that I have responded to 100% of the comments. So yours were some that I had overlooked. So sorry about that, but we're all caught up. Love the before and after videos. I'll keep them going. I mean, I've got the long form ones on the YouTube channel, but man, I don't know. If I could get them done in like 30 seconds to 60 seconds, I think it keeps everyone's attention. They're able to see it. And the people that want to just see the pictures don't watch the entire video. And the people that want to see all the numbers, well, they're probably on these live streams where we can talk about it. So, all right. Thanks. Happy Sunday to everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will talk to you all this Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard on the YouTubes.